Hello and welcome back to episode, was it 4 now?
Episode 4.
Episode 4. We've done some great work.
I
I'm really
know.
proud of us, Eli.
I think we've done amazing. The fact that we've done 4 of these is surprising. The fact that 3 people have agreed to come on the show is amazing.
Yeah.
And we're excited to welcome our third guest. But before we do that,
We would just like to talk about a topic that both me and Eli and our guest is extremely passionate about, and
yes,
that is soil science.
exactly.
I
I
think I can't speak for Eli, but I know me and at least the person coming on soon is extremely passionate about soil science.
Yeah,
So
so we wanted to take these first few minutes before we actually introduce our guest to talk about what our favorite soil type is. And then when we introduce our guest as an expert, as a self-proclaimed expert of soil types, they will be able to give us their favorite. So yeah, I'll go first when talking about my favorite soil type. You can call me basic, but I'm a pretty big fan of the Spottisol. I think that what's really interesting about the Spottisol is that it's a soil meant for like really dense and wet regions, right? Very humid regions, which normally one would think like that's where plants would thrive. But this one is like no, like it's acidic, it's infertile, like it's where plants don't grow, surrounded in a region where plants are supposed to grow. Think Florida, think Maine. So yeah, I'm a Spottisol guy through and through. Jack, what are your thoughts though?
personally, I differ from like what a lot of people would say. I think when people think about soil, they think about lush and like vegetation growing and fertilization. But I'm a big fan of the iridosols, mainly because you find them in like where you would like raise like cattle or whatever, like wildlife are there. It's very like large pasture grains. You don't get a lot of vegetation there because it's very acidic. It's got a lot of clay in it, and there's definitely a lot of metals, but it's from my home state of Texas. That's like where you would find it in that region. And it's just the opposite of what soil thinks. So that's why I find it personally interesting.
Yeah, I mean, what
Okay.
an amazing topic too. And yeah, Jack, do you want to introduce our guest?
Yeah. So our self-proclaimed expert on soil science, our guest for this episode, Antonio. Welcome.
Hey everyone! First of all, thank you for having me. This is an honor and a pleasure to be here talking with this incredible show. Thank you for having me.
So would
Thank
you
you.
like to tell everybody what your favorite soil order is and why?
Yeah. So really, my favorite soil type really goes hand in hand with my favorite biome, which is obviously the chaparral. I really like it because I think it represents life really well. Because all the vegetation grows up, and then once it becomes too much, boom, fire, all of it to the ground, all of it dead, and then it has to start over again from scratch, from nothing. And the soil type that's there is the mollisol. And I really like that soil type because I think it's very adaptable. It's very capable of growing new stuff, obviously, and then just using the old stuff to build new stuff. It's just very like open to change and like not afraid of just restarting and making something beautiful and new, just like everything, just like the chaparral is. If you've been to California, it's a beautiful biome. And yeah, that's why I love the mollisols.
Lovely
Mm.
answer.
W-
Lovely.
What an expert opinion too. I was blown away.
Thank
Um,
you.
so yeah, we hear you have a topic you want to discuss. Do you want to?
Wait, before we get to the first topic, we need to ask you,
Oh,
do
how
you
could
think a hot dog is a sandwich?
I think it is not.
It's not. Okay. Respectable. Respectable. Okay,
good
now would you like
answer.
to
Good
introduce the
answer.
first topic?
So so today the topic that I would like to begin to talk about is veganism. And I'd like to talk about this topic because it's kind of interesting to me, because I think that as young people, our generation is like very much attracted to things that are modern and like things that are like avant-garde and futuristic. If you talk to people who are our age, you'll hear about like, yeah, we need to transfer into a renewable energy grid, because it's not good to contaminate the world, or else where are we going to live in? We have to purchase things that are like socially responsible, and like purchase like ethical consumption is so big. Everybody's looking for, it's like, oh yeah, I can't go to that restaurant though because they source lettuce from Maine instead of like a local place, you know, and because that pollutes the earth more, I'm not going to go to that restaurant. So like everybody's kind of thinking like that, but I feel like when it comes to being vegan, there's still like so much of a stigma. I'm not personally vegan, just so you know. My girlfriend is vegan, so that's why I know, I guess, about it. But I feel like there's still a lot of stigma around it, and it's like, oh, you're vegan, you're such a nerd, you know?
Right. So we have a few questions before we delve into any like opinions. So first one is, could you explain for anybody who may not know, because some people actually don't know, can you explain the difference between vegetarianism and veganism?
Yeah, definitely. There's actually more than just those two. You also have like pescatarianism. Like
Right.
basically the way that it works is that there's like a bunch of little like stages. And the first stage is what most people are, which is like eating whatever the hell they want that they're not allergic to. And then the ultimate stage is being vegan, which is where like you basically the definition of that is do not eat animal products. Right? So that means no meat of any kind, no chicken, no fish, no nothing. And then on top of that, you can't eat like animal products, which are like dairy products mostly is the big thing, like also goat products. And then like there's like really hardcore vegans out there that don't eat honey, for example, because it is a insect product, I guess. And you have to like really watch it in every single thing you eat. For like, for example, in gummy bears, they actually use like insect like wings to make it shiny, and vegans can't eat that, so they can't eat gummy bears. So it's like it actually goes a lot deeper than you think. So yeah, and then vegetarianism, I think it's just that you don't eat meat, but you can still eat like eggs and dairy and stuff like that.
There are some vegetarians who actually don't eat eggs.
Like eggs specifically, but they can still eat like dairy and
Yeah, they're
cheeses and milk.
like that is more like, I feel like vegetarianism have like more lenient rules
Correct.
than veganism.
It's like a spectrum, with like vegan being kind of like the most extreme, kind of, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, would you like to explain like reasons of why people may choose the vegan lifestyle?
Yeah, definitely. I think that there are two like major reasons why I think people would consider becoming vegan and why people should be vegan. The first one is because of animal rights and like being conscious of like how they treat animals in the food industry. Chicken is probably your easiest example. I don't know if you've seen like the videos from the chicken farms that people like, you know, the secret agent guy will like jump into this disgusting chicken farms to record it. And these chickens are like not treated well, like at all to any degree. Like your little cage-free thing that it says on your eggs packet is like complete idiocy. Just because they may not be in cages, but they're like so crowded in these farms that there's literally like they can't even move. Like these chickens will literally just sit down and never stand up again because they have their legs will just underdeveloped and they won't be able to hold up their own weight just because they can't physically move anywhere. So they just don't use their legs ever, you know? And then on top of that, there's also like, that's for like chickens. Actually, this isn't really animal rights related, but like, for example, for fish, there's also like mercury issues, as we learned, P-Enviro.
Absolutely.
But, you know, fish, like, when you're eating a fish is like an animal that's like on the top of the food chain. And so it's going to have the mercury that every single, like it ate like smaller fish. And then those fish have mercury. And so it has all the, like it has everything in it, you know? And then when you eat the thing, like, can you guys still see me? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we got you.
Okay. And just the mercury is like really bad for you. And, but the biggest issue for me would definitely be the environmental part of it. I think that if you, for example, for beef, making beef like takes so much water, and that is like really, really, really bad for the earth. And like that same goes for any kind of like animal protein. I don't know if I'm like blabbing on. You guys can stop me whenever, but and then like cows fart that's like actually like a major issue. Like all the methane that they pump out into the atmosphere, like because beef farming is so worldwide, then it's like a lot, dude. It's like so much more than you think. It's like comparable to cars and stuff like that, just because we consume so much beef, at, at the worldwide level. And even though pork and chicken and like, well obviously not fish because fish don't farm, but like they still like they're not as big as beef. They still produce methane and they still consume water and they still consume like so much in order to make the product. And honestly, it's not really sustainable. I think that at some point, like everybody's going to have to be vegan because it's simply not possible.
So you think that I don't know how many years, but you think that gradually the whole world will wean onto this vegan lifestyle?
Yes, but also no. I think that people who like understand that the current way that like the human race is existing on the planet is like very unsustainable, and that if we don't like stop consuming resources at such a rate and in such an unsustainable way, that there's basically just not going to be anything left in like 150 years. And like I think that people who understand that will be like, well, what can I do? And then they'll like switch to being vegan, because that's like one major way that you can cut off your own like greenhouse gases and like carbon footprint. But I think that there is like a very big portion of the population that is either like not going to be educated to know like not only the situation that the world is in, but also like what they have to do to help for it. So like just because not knowing, they're just going to continue to do what they do. And then there's also people who are like stubborn and don't care and just love meat, so are just going to continue eating it even though it's bad for the world.
Yeah, and that kind of brings us to like a good question for Antonio and for Jack, which is, veganism from like an environmental standpoint, from an animal rights standpoint, veganism is like an amazing option, but meat is also a very delicious food substance. So, my question is, how do you balance that? I know all three of us eat meat in our diets, so like how do the two of you try to do you try to form a balance? Do you not? Why not? So yeah.
I've been talking for a lot, so if you want, you can start here.
Okay, I think, it's tough because I think right now in America, obviously, I think there's like the more organic and generally like vegan products tend to be more expensive. So I think that is a problem of getting everybody to go to that lifestyle. So it's kind of like, it's not as like money efficient per se. So for me personally, I like to eat meat. I'm just going to say it. And I understand like what people who are vegan are trying to say and trying to do. And I respect that. And I'm in full support of them. I just personally don't think that I would say ever, but right now, at least right now in my life, I do not have the willpower to take all animal products out of my diet, personally.
Okay. I mean, yeah, that's fine. I'm definitely like in the same boat as you. Like I love eating meat. I was raised on meat. My mom, my grandmother, phenomenal cooks of meat, and they make meat taste delicious, and I love it. But I honestly I think there is a way to balance it. When I'm here at home, then I think it's a little bit different because my mom makes my food, so it's not like I can just say like, "Hey, mom, I'm not gonna eat this because it's meat," because then she would kill me. But when I'm at college, I'm actually a lot better about it. I try to since I can buy my own things, I have a smoothie for breakfast every day. And at first I would put milk and I would put yogurt in it, but then I converted to oat milk. And there's also this this yogurt that they make with coconut water instead of any kind of dairy. And I can tell you right now that it tastes 10 times better than normal yogurt. right? And it's insane, and it adds a whole coconutty flavor to my smoothie, and it's insane. And as for cheese, I think that cheese like isn't really there yet. The cheese is like terrible. No offense. And it's also super expensive. Like there's like a little bit that was like this big at Schnucks. It was like a tiny little block, and it was $6. And
Yeah.
I'm not gonna pay $6 for a tiny block of cheese that isn't good. That being said, there's also like a lot of restaurants that do vegan food really, really, really well. Like I went to a place down in the South City the other day. It's called Utah Station, and we had some vegan pizza with my girlfriend because she was here in town, and I swear to God, it was the best pizza I've ever had in my life. Like better than any normal pizza. Okay, and we had vegan pepperoni on it. Okay, so it was that good.
That's
so
impressive.
yeah, I'm just saying. But I think that you can like slowly put things into your diet, you know, like changing the yogurt is easy, and then like slowly changing it. Like I've seen many videos of like children cooking like the vegan and meat replacements for their parents, and they don't even notice. Like, and they're like, wow, this is really good. Congratulations. And then at the end they're like, ha, it was vegan. Stupid.
Yeah, it's definitely possible to do it. It's just you have to be the one to do it. Like
Right.
Just to make an effort.
You have to have like the willpower to do it.
Especially like, you know, like you said, like if you're someone who is not, you know, responsible for making the meals that you eat, right? Like if, you know, your family, right, makes your meals, it's almost like running a marathon or like training for a marathon. Like it's possible, but it takes like lots of preparation and lots of effort, and you just have to be like constantly you know, motivated to try to preserve that vegan diet.
Exactly. No, and my goal is to be completely vegan like whenever I move out. Like whenever I have my own place and I can control all my food intake, I'll be completely vegan. And that's my idea at least.
Yeah, that actually reminds me of something that my uncle said. He's my uncle's vegan, and the last time I saw him out in LA, I was leaving the airport, and he said something really weird to me. As the last thing he said to me was really weird, and I remember because he turned to me and he didn't say like I love you, he didn't say like have a good flight. He said, "Hey Eli, do you think the U.S. is responsible for maintaining peace around the world? And if not, what role should the U.S. play in preventing or intervening in wars and abusive governments?" And that just kind of caught me off guard, right? But it got me thinking, because that was like a deep question too, right? Like for an airport question, no less. I wanna pose that question to you, just because it's been kind of rattling my brain lately.
Yeah.
So yeah, Jack, do you want to go first?
Let's let Antonio go first.
Oh,
Okay. So basic main points of the question: is the United States like in charge of being the police of the world? Yes. And then what was the second point?
Like, if not, what role should the U.S. play in preventing or intervening?
Okay. Okay. I think that I don't think that any country should be in charge of playing the role of the police in the world, because as we've seen recently, the role of the police isn't really good in general. So, you know, there's that. Also, I really don't think that any country has like any kind of obligation to other countries. Like nothing like no rule forces anyone to like go help another person. I think that a country that has more power and more money and like the ability to help others should, because they're like a good country. Like people should help each other because they're good people and they want to help each other, not because like they're the richest one, you know? So I think that since the United States has like the financial capabilities and the militaristic capabilities to help people, it should, but it should like in a very selective way, right? Because I'm Latino, I'm from Colombia, and I'm from Mexico. And as a person who comes from those countries, I know a lot about the history of my countries and like the Latin American community. And the United States has influenced just about like at least one election or like one like major historical event in every single country of Latin America. And like that can be seen in Honduras, that can be seen in Nicaragua, that can be seen in the Dominican Republic. Puerto Rico's Puerto Rico's like the best example. Okay, like the amount of like the way that the United States has gone about it so far has been very, very negative, and like it's just not good. Like the United States has prevented those nations from deciding their future themselves simply because the future that they have decided doesn't like fit the United States' priorities. And the United States should support, the decisions of the people, because that's democracy. That's what it's about. Just because it doesn't like favor them, they shouldn't. I mean, the United States should help, but only if it supports like the decisions of the people. That's just what I think.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. So I have a slight issue with this question because it's hard to answer. It's difficult. I feel like most answers contradict itself. Like this question is kind of a double-edged sword. You suggest one thing, but then when given a scenario, you suggest another. It's tough to like maneuver around, because at least in my eyes, I don't think isolationism works. It's not good for us as a country as a whole. But I also don't think interventionism works, because that's also not good, and we could end up supporting wrong causes, which has been past problems of American foreign politics. I think America shouldn't be the police, but I do think that they should work towards making the globe a better place, which includes trying to get other countries to like help support organizations that are for, as you said, the people. I think it's important, instead of going to mingle or to go into foreign politics, it's important to take out the economic and the political interests of our country and only focus on like human rights and actual peace. I think that's the main ridicule of American foreign politics so far, is that they've gone into certain situations for shady things. And I think if you could hammer down to just human rights and protecting human rights and getting other countries involved in that, I think then yes, America should be involved. But if they're unable to establish the correct reasons for going into a specific country, they shouldn't go, because they'll just make things worse. And I know that America has its own problems, and many of them, and we need to work on that internally. But that doesn't mean that we could just like turn a blind eye to the other countries and we don't want like genocides to happen. I feel like that should like be stopped. So I think it's important for us to get involved.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that my uncle did ask kind of an odd question, and I don't know if it was. I think I agree it's a little bit contradictory. I think especially with America, if we don't do anything, then the world says like, how could you not intervene? You have the ability to like create peace, and you don't. But if we do intervene, right, people say like, hey, why are you intervening in another country's business, right? And I think our history in both cases has been very sketchy, right? So like, for instance, right, like we did colonize we did go to war, start a war in Vietnam because we like claimed that there's a human rights issue going on. We need to like protect the people, right? We colonized the Philippines and Cuba because we claimed that it was a human rights issue. We most recently South Sudan became an independent country in large part because the United States said, look, there is this like massacre going on. This is a human rights issue. We need to like create this independent country. And yet what ended happening was like a huge war between South Sudan and Sudan, which caused an increase in the amount of deaths that were happening there. So I think whenever we do intervene, even when we claim it's for a human rights reason, first of all, like it's not always a human rights reason, right? Like Vietnam, right, Iran, Afghanistan, and even when we do, right, oftentimes we're coming at it from a Western perspective, which is not always the solution, if we're not talking about, what is going on in, non-Western civilizations. But it's also difficult because, for instance, like during the Rwandan genocide, we chose not to intervene, and Bill Clinton said it was his biggest mistake in office. The UN condemned America, right? Like, we are yelling at the American government right now for not intervening in Myanmar, where there's a massive genocide going on. So it's definitely a gray area, right, in terms of how much is too much. And I agree that human rights should be where we draw the line, but the problem is, at that point, how can we be sure that our human rights intervention is actually going to be peaceful, which I think gets into a bigger, more philosophical discussion about interventionism.
Which is why I think that America shouldn't go in alone. It should be a global effort. Because if it's a global effort, I think if a conversation comes out about a certain situation and the globe as a whole decides to do this thing, I feel like the globe would be able to choose the side of human rights in that scenario and support like that part of the situation. So I think the US, instead of getting involved right away, should work towards a global solution. To end the episode on a more lighter note, I think because Antonio is so well traveled, and me and Eli want to be well traveled, we wanted to just discuss briefly what our city that we most want to live in. Anywhere in the world, you could choose any city. It's just, where do you most want to live?
Name
Eli,
like two or three. Yeah, we'll do like 2 or 3 cities, and we'll end with our guest Antonio. So
Perfect.
this was tough for me because I'm not sure if I want to like live internationally, live in the U.S. So I have a list of 3 cities. Here they are. So one is Wellington, New Zealand. The reason why is because the New Zealand is such a beautiful country, and such a welcoming country too. I also don't feel like I'd feel out of place because I looked it up. It's like 25% of people living in New Zealand are immigrants. So I don't feel like, as someone who didn't grow up in New Zealand, it'd be like an odd experience for me either, although I haven't been to New Zealand. Overall, it just seems like a really welcoming place. So that's place number 1. Place number 2 is Santa Barbara, California. Which might be a little bit basic, but like also it's like gorgeous, and I feel like it'd be like living in vacation every single day. So that's my choice number 2. And choice number 3, potential city number 3, is Venice, Italy. I don't know Italian, so I'd have to learn how to speak Italian, but the canals are amazing. Like it's the place I want to visit the most, and I could see myself just living there, by the canals, just reading a book and working. Like, so that's my top 3. What about you, Jack?
All right. So personally, like, I discussed a lot of cities in my head, but I ended up coming to the conclusion that I don't really want to live abroad. Like, I don't really want to go too far away. I was like debating a lot of international cities, but in the end, I just feel like personally, like, I'd love to visit so many cities, but I just wouldn't really want to live in a lot of places other than here, because I'm comfortable here. I'm happy here. I have family here. And that's just personally how I feel. I know it may be controversial, but so I ended up throwing an international city, even though it's not that far away. Toronto, I think I would actually love to live in, because it's still kind of close. Food's good. It's affordable in a way, and it's got good jobs. And also the other thing is it's actually pretty diverse. I think, like, I can't remember the percentage, but a lot of the people aren't actually from Toronto who live there. They're from like a lot of places. So it could be like an interesting experience. It's a very diverse experience that I may get. And then the other city I chose is Austin, Texas. I think that's the one that I'm leaning towards instead of Toronto. I think Austin is the one that I'd most like live in. Personally, I'm from Texas, so I got like a little place in my heart always for that. But I'm from Dallas, but instead this time I'm going to Austin. The food's great there. Again, affordable living and good jobs for what I'm looking for. And the food I mentioned the food, and the music scene and the city life is just great. And I think that I could actually see myself living.
So for me, I mean, this is kind of a difficult choice. I feel like there's just so much out there, you know, that like I'd like to experience before I die. And I don't know, there's just so many options. I definitely want to live in Europe for like a little bit. I've been learning French for a very long time, so I would like to live in maybe Paris or maybe southern France or Switzerland. I think that I'm a very warm weather person, so those countries would be very difficult for me, but I would like to spend some time in like a cold country just to like figure it out and like just enjoy it for a hot sec. After that, I think living in Asia would be really cool. I lived in Jakarta for 3 years and I really enjoyed that vibe and just like that experience. So I definitely want to live maybe in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. I've been there and it's just such a weird, but also like really unique and insane place. The weather's really, really nice. It's in like on the equator, so it's like really tropical and warm, but it's also like a very, very up and coming city, like technologically. It's like the biggest city in Malaysia and one of the most important cities in Southeast Asia. So it's kind of like, it's a lot more developed than like the rest of Asia, but it's also like not, you know? So it's like a nice little balance there. It's not like as cold as Tokyo or Seoul, but it's still like cool. It's like a sweet spot, you know? And then in the end, I'd probably want to end up in Colombia, where I'm from. Like, it's the same thing as Jack said, you know? It's like, it's the home, and then it's like Spanish and like the things that you know. And I honestly love to end up there because the city is Cartagena, and Cartagena is like awesome because it's on the coast, and then it has like so many historical areas, and it could put the Austin music scene to sleep. So.
I'm sure.
The salsa clubs are insane, and there's so much dancing and like just like general Latin vibes cannot be beat in general. So I would just love that. I'd love to live there for a hot second.
Well, Antonio, thank you for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Amazing.
Thank you for having me. This has been great. I love talking to you guys. This is a great show.
All right. Thank you so much. This has been Jews with the News. Okay.
Yeah, we'll see you guys later.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, we forgot to do this, but shout out
to Daniel Zhang. Video editor extraordinaire. Thank you so much for editing all these videos. Okay.